Warning: the following segment may contain spoilers for the most recent Transformers comic books. This week, Rob and I will be talking about Regeneration 1 issue 89, and Amy's bringing us news and a review of Monstrosity number 1.
Hello, news bits today in the Transformers comics news circles. We've got an alternate cover that has been revealed for More Than Meets the Eye 15, which will be out this month. Yay! We're going to get 2 More Than Meets the Eye issues. Yay! Anyhow, you can check that. I believe that's on DeviantArt. I think Josh Burcham put that out there, so check out his DeviantArt page. Woohoo! Also, we have some commentary for Spotlight Bumblebee on the Facebook page, the Transformers Facebook page. And Amazon has revealed that the next issue of this book series, the Transformers Classified, this is Battle Mountain. This is the second book. The third book, called Satellite of Doom, has also been put up on Amazon. So it will be available this fall. So if you're reading this or giving it or reading it to your little ones like I am, I'm reading this for my kids, because it's for younger readers. Not really easy readers though, because it's the readers that are at least able to read. I'm reading it to my 3rd grader, 4th grader, that type of age group. Fun story, a little predictable, but it's got my interest, which more than other things have not held my interest as much. So I've got a couple questions. I'm like, hey, I can't wait to see where they go with this. So, loving it. So if that's something that works for you, then yeah, it's going to be out this fall. And last and certainly not least, this week we should be getting another issue of Monstrosity. Now, we have 1 issue out, which I'm going to review in a few minutes. But for right now, it should be out sometime this week. By the time this video goes up, it'll probably be out already. So if you are following Monstrosity, go look for it. It should be out on Comixology or the IDW app. And now for the review. So, I'm reviewing Monstrosity issue number 1. It's written by the same creative team that brought us Autocracy. So, it's written by Chris Metzen and Flint Dilley and illustrated solely by Livio Ramondelli. You can buy Autocracy in trade or digital, but from a Monstrosity, only the digital format issue is available right now. This 8-page chapter is titled Derelicts. So the story so far. Long ago on the planet Cybertron, after eons of despotic rule, the lineage of the cruel and unjust primes was broken by police officer Orion Pax and the renegade Megatron, leader of the Decepticons. Together they overthrew Zeta Prime, but Megatron betrayed Orion, leaving him for dead. Orion uncovered the matrix of leadership and defeated the Decepticons, freeing Cybertron and becoming Optimus Prime. But the world's problems are far from over. So we open with an explosive presence from none other than the Dinobots, who seem to be on a self-serving mission of their own to get the spark off Cybertron. And they're trying to do so by scoring a stash or something for Swindle. However, it ends up being bad intel, and they get a lousy stash, half of what Swindle had promised them, so they're not very happy. Then we find out what Optimus Prime has been dealing with, as he's now Prime. And not everyone is as supportive in the Cybertronian government about this. He meets direct resistance from none other than Diatlas. He says, we're just exchanging one tyrant for another. Whoa. But Prime handles it in stride and is able to keep Diatlas at the table of discussion and committed to finding ways to make it work for everyone peaceably. Even if it's just only out of respect for the Matrix. Then we find out about Megatron and who's taken over. Scorponok. He's in deep space to dispose of a broken Megatron, and as they cast him off into deep space, they toss him off onto the death world of Junkion. Optimus Prime returns to his quarters to have a chat with an old friend who's pretty impressed with how he's been doing, keeping things together, yet Optimus Prime, he has his doubts. They're not going to go away. And to wrap up the issue, we go back to Megatron, who's risen from the impact crater on Junkion, but he's not alone, and things are about to get kind of rowdy. Yeah, kind of rowdy. Okay, so once again, it's great to see these guys back. I was pretty impressed with all of the characters that they had in this issue. It's like every time I turned a page, I saw a character I didn't expect to see in the issue, and I was pretty stoked for that. While nothing incredibly exciting happened, I still felt there was payoff seeing the characters that I didn't expect every time I turned a page. I'm eager to see Megatron take on the Junkions. I'm interested in what will happen with the conflict with Optimus and Diatlas. I want to know why the Dinobots feel that they're jeopardizing everyone on Cybertron by being there. There are enough questions in my first read to have me interested in the next issue. So, am I completely hooked yet? No, but I've got enough to keep me reading because I'm like, okay, I want to know some of these questions. I want to see what they're going to do with it. Art, once again, is very moody and gritty. Cybertron looks like a mess. Levio pulls off a wrecked world trying to pull the pieces back together. If you haven't been a fan of Levio's work, this probably won't change your mind, but I'm liking it. And I've been following his stuff since he first joined us on Chaos, and I'm seeing shifts in his work that show improvement in his craft. It just has this energy, and his coloring really sells it for me. So, yes, there are G1 lines repeated in the story that they've had. We've heard them all before. It's great, and that this creative team. They've been known to use this in the past, so it's not anything new. It's the same thing that they've done before. But I think that they pulled it off for me because it was from characters that have never really said those lines before, or it just made sense. Instead of rolling my eyes, I just chuckled at them. Like, I still function. It's a Megatron phrase. I expect that Megatron, no matter what continuity he's in, would say that. It's like me saying it's fantastic. It's just... hey, it still works every single time I say it. Okay. So for me, I'd rate this a 4 because I was pretty pleased with the character service, and I got payoff from that. These issues are $1 issues, so it doesn't feel like it's breaking the bank for it. So you can buy them at IDWpublishing.com or at Comixology. And that's my review. Well, that's all from me. This is Amy signing off for next week. We'll see you then.
Okay, so, Regeneration 1. Regeneration 1.
Mm-hmm. You're usually the one to say nothing happened this issue, but nothing happened this issue.
Well, it's kind of like the last story arc, where issue 4 of 5 was, just nothing happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pattern now.
Mm-hmm. I almost kind of wish we have like 3 different story threads going on, and I kind of wish we'd just get like one issue setting things up, one issue each to each of those story threads, and then the finale that hopefully allegedly ties it all together. Just something to change what we're doing here, which is kind of drifting from point to point, giving tiny bits of new or newish information, or as new as anything in this gets. And, just kind of on cruise control to the end of the storyline.
I mean, it was so meandering feeling, this issue, that almost none of what was going on really made sense unto itself.
Yeah.
The dialogue between Scorponok and Perceptor, for instance, just seemed to be completely all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
With nothing really connecting before or after it. And even the stuff Scorponok is saying directly to Perceptor, it feels half random.
Yeah, basically what I got out of it is that he was threatening Perceptor essentially. I know when to shut up to you.
Right.
But
it was written in the most, I don't even know what word to use. The way it was written, though, you can get the point, but it's so much more than it needed to be to say that.
Mm-hmm.
still can't think of the word.
A little bit roundabout, but
That's
that's
not the
probably
word, but yeah.
But yeah, and again, I'm just sitting here. I was sitting there rereading it this afternoon and thinking, okay, one of the problems here is that we are really trying to wind the Generation 1 continuity around until it's close enough to G2 for Furman to move on with what he has wanted to do since the end of G2.
Which, in that case, why not just start after G2 and build from there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody would have minded that.
I wouldn't have. There was interesting plot threads left at the end of G2.
Yeah,
which he would have squandered the same way he's squandering this, but still.
I don't know, maybe not, because like I said, it just feels like he's trying to get everything wound around to basically where the story elements he wanted to use at the end of G2 will work here, and it is taking an awful lot of what's the word?
Time?
Time. Yeah, that's the one to get it done. And I don't know. I just somehow I picture this within somewhere around issue 94, 97, somewhere in there, to go, oh crap, we're almost out of time, and go into full info dump mode.
Well, at least if that was to happen, there'd be something happening in those issues where they're rapidly scrambling to explain everything they were trying to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And, wasted 17 issues not explaining already.
Yeah.
And see, if he is trying to get things back around to where he can use the G2 plots or post G2 plots, whatever those might have been, I hope it's not going to take, 13 issues of this to get to that point.
Yeah.
We're already at 9 issues in. It's time for this story arc to end and just go and do something else.
Yeah, it's time for us to get to the point. And the worst part is that I'm convinced that some of the things that we've been spending time on, we've been basically doing a meanwhile back on Earth thing for every issue of this, and I'm certain at this point this is not even going to tie into this storyline. That's probably setting up for whatever comes after we're done with Scorponok on Cybertron, and not it will have no impact whatsoever on the current story. Likewise, with the little aside we got to Soundwave and Bludgeon last issue, what I was hoping to see last month, and I would still love to see, is just all of these Decepticon factions come together and end up fighting against each other. That could at least be entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
But no, they're going to form a line, and they're going to queue up and be dealt with one story arc at a time.
Yeah.
With little meandering previews of the next story arc, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's clear what the modern Tales on Earth is gonna come to in the end. Galvatron's probably gonna kill Optimus Prime and go back to Cybertron with the Ark, and that's gonna be our final storyline.
Yeah.
Which basically means we're gonna be seeing lots of little snippets of that through the next 6 issues, alongside the other Decepticon storyline that's going to start in issue 91.
Yeah.
In one manner of speaking, this series is really easy to read, but boy, is this hard to read.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder, since you brought it up now, whether maybe Furman, as he's trying to go back and remember what he was going to do at the end of G1, I wonder if he's confusing some of the stuff he had planned for G2, would that have continued, and he's kind of unintentionally mashing them up somewhat.
Either that or it is actually intentional and he's trying to find some middle ground where he can use all the story elements he ever wanted to use and wrap it all up at once. And 20 issues might be enough for that if you don't take your time.
Yeah.
We're kind of taking our time. I don't know. these issues, I almost want to say that these issues actually need to be more self-contained instead of longer story arcs.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are no real natural stopping points for these, and some of the things in More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in Disguise have really put a point on that lately, because they know where to stop an issue,
Right.
whether it's because that's the end of this month's story or because they have come up with a tremendous cliffhanger. They know what they're doing.
See, the problem. Okay, in the past we've talked about how it seems like there's a set amount of story that he planned out ahead of time, and he's been trying to figure out how to break that down into a set run length.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the way the issues are paced, it seems a lot more like the style you would have where you're writing an open-ended title,
Mm-hmm.
and you're making story arcs to just go a stretch of time without regard for, well, we only have this many issues left to do this with. He's treating it more like, well, this will go for a while, then we'll move on to something else, and it'll just continue on, and I will tell the story I want to. There is this clash of approaches, and I think that's really hurting what the book could be.
Yeah. Uh, I think you're right there. I almost wonder if he's hoping that this will be popular enough that it will get some kind of extension and he'll be able to just keep going with it. And that's why he's almost afraid to commit to doing some of the more decisive things that this story would need to do to actually be really good.
The alternative that strikes me is that basically what he has in mind is the last 5 issue storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's got that all developed in his head. But since he has a 20 issue run, he's like, well, what can I put in these other 15 issues until we get to that point?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, if in issue 96 everything like turns on its head and gets really interesting
Mm-hmm.
and more fast paced and all, we might have an indication then that he's just really bad at plotting out a longer story arc.
Yeah, which kind of is an odd thing to see, because with Generation 2, it always seemed like there was a whole year there and it was plotted out fairly
Mm-hmm.
cohesively, with that hook at the end to continue if there were enough subscriptions to continue, which if
There weren't.
well, I was about to say it, which if Tom DeFalco didn't hate all the licensed books, there might have been.
Mm.
But the thing, I don't know. I what happened is 20 years happened, but what else is there to say at that point?
It may be that G2 did this better because there was more like editorial control on board, making sure that the story was tighter and that it flowed better from month to month. IDW may well be letting Furman just kind of run his own ship.
And yeah, the one of the things that I don't know if I said it online or not. Interview with John Barber recently, he was talking about basically the fact that he is an editor on some of the other Transformers books, yet he really appreciates and needs his relationship with his own editor. He realizes that he needs more eyes
Right.
on that book.
Yeah.
And yeah, editors, a good editor is worth his or her weight in gold.
Mm-hmm.
It is not necessarily, bad editors are just as bad writers or bad artists when you get to the end product, but the editors are not inherently an evil.
No, no. An editor that is really good at their job, they may do stuff that the writers and artists hate them for doing to them, but at the same time, they are working their best to strengthen the final product.
Mm-hmm.
And, a good writer, a good artist, they are going to recognize that fact and, they'll grit their teeth, but they will understand that, okay, they're trying to make my work better for the general audience. It may not be exactly what I wanted to produce anymore, but it's going to still appeal to more people that way.
Yeah. Before we wrap this up, one more thing I wanted to bring up. Is it me, or does this issue render the little confrontation between Grimlock and Scorponok last issue almost completely pointless?
There was a confrontation between Grimlock and Scorponok last issue? Well, the book sure acts like it didn't happen.
Yeah. Grimlock's still wandering around. No one's watching him. He's not under control. He's not, he's not actually suddenly obedient, which, you would not expect Grimlock to be. But at the same time, Scorponok just leaves him and then wanders off to go have conversations where Perceptor explains the premise of the book to him.
Right. Yeah, so that seems like something that's like, well, this didn't really work out in the long run. Let's just drop it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, editing.